Welcome everyone to the final of MRNA II, which is marketed as a two-dot tournament, meaning it's above a novice difficulty, but probably less difficult than everyone's favorite tournament, ACF Regionals. We have two teams who are on a 9-1 win record, meaning they have won 9 games and lost 1 game. Imperial's only loss has been to Cambridge A, and Cambridge A lost early in the day to Warwick A. So we have a 1-game final. Whoever wins this game will be declared the winners of MRNA II. Good luck to both teams. Would I think maybe introduce yourselves?
Yeah, who wants to go first, Cam or him?
Hi, I'm Justin Lee. I'm in my second year as a chemistry student. And yeah.
Cool.
Hello, I'm Enoch Yoon from Imperial, and I'm doing a PhD in biology, specifically plant immunology.
Hello, I'm Adam Jones. I study computer science at Imperial, third year.
Hi, I'm Michael. I'm about to finish my PhD in aeronautical engineering.
Fantastic. And Cam, if you'd like to introduce yourselves.
Hi, I'm Abigail, and I just finished my third year studying maths at Cambridge.
Hi, I'm Sam. I just finished my first year studying philosophy.
Hi, I'm Ignacio. I'm in my first year of a PhD in maths.
Hi, I'm Sarah. I've just done my second year studying Japanese.
Great stuff. Hello all. I'm Ben, as you all know. I have the honor of reading to you your finals game today. Am I clear, first of all?
Oh, yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Okay. Are we good to go?
Yeah.
Fantastic. Okay, good luck to both teams. And here is toss-up 1. In a novel, this character remembers how, as a child, he helped clean up the remains of an old woman he saw burn at the stake. In that novel, this character receives a turquoise ring from a courtier who displays a tapestry of Solomon and the Queen of Sheba. This character holds Rich's hand to a candle in a play in which this character prosecutes a case before a jury helmed by the common man. This character leaves to fight in the Italian wars after suffering a... I have Justin.
Thomas Cromwell.
That is power. Thomas Cromwell is correct. And Imperial, you get these bonuses. These diagrams can use diamonds to indicate persons of unknown gender. For 10 points each, name these diagrams, sometimes colloquially called family trees, which are used to trace genetic disorders in families. In these diagrams, circles represent females and boxes represent males.
They're not Punnett square, right? Because Punnett
No.
square is not
No, they're not squares.
I don't know how is that.
Answer, please.
Heredity tree.
No, sorry, these are pedigrees. A pair of unaffected people have several children. None of the daughters have the disease, but half of the sons do. What's the most likely mode of inheritance for this condition?
Oh, it
Y
looks like...
chromosome.
Yeah, it has to be.
Sex-linked Y chromosome. What's a specific term, you know?
Y chromosome linked.
Answer, please.
We'll just say that.
Y chromosome linked. Yeah.
No, sorry, this is X-linked recessive.
Oh, yes. Oh.
And lastly, a consanguineous marriage is indicated on a pedigree in this way.
What?
Interlinked?
Or like a dotted line or something?
Could be dotted line.
Yeah, dotted line. Do it.
We'll say that.
Yeah, dotted line.
No, sorry, this is a double line between two people.
This was painful.
Insane.
Well, this is biology for us.
Toss-up 2. In a historic tradition from this country, sugar brides were exchanged to celebrate Muhammad's birthday. A scholar born in this country hosted a show called Sharia and Life. An epithet referring to Fatima as luminous likely lends its name to an influential institution in this country. First published in this country, the book Milestones promoted a widespread Islamic revival by fighting Jahiliyyah or ignorance with jihad. That book was written by this country's native Sayyid Qutb, who is a prominent member of the Muslim Brotherhood, which was founded in this. I have Sam.
Egypt.
Egypt is correct for 10 points. And Cambridge, you get these bonuses. The speaker states there ought to be a law against this character in a poem that begins, filling her compact and delicious body with chicken paprika, she glanced at me twice. For 10 points each, name this huffy character with plights and gripes as bad as Achilles. He appears in a cycle of poems that includes his toy, his dream, his rest.
Toy, dream, rest, any other?
I didn't. Something. Sorry. Huffy? Did you say huffy character?
Answer, please.
Yeah.
Just try something.
That's time. Sorry, this is Henry. John Berryman used Henry as an authorial stand-in in this autobiographical group of poems, which includes musings on depression and controversial blackface passages.
It's just like
Berryman.
self-portrait in a convex mirror, but I think that's somebody else.
I think we
Go
need to
with
go
that.
for that. Go for it.
Yeah, go
That's
with
good.
that.
Self-portrait in a
Alright, so-
convex mirror.
No, these are the dream songs. And finally, Berryman's dream songs are often grouped with this post-war style of American poetry. Associated with Sylvia Plath and Robert Lowell, it focuses on the personal disclosure of extreme experience or trauma.
Confessional, right?
Yeah.
Go
Yeah,
for it.
that makes sense.
Yeah, confessional.
That is confessional poetry for 10 from those.
Yeah. The convex mirror is by Ashbery.
Mhm.
So yeah.
Toss-up 3. This element's 2 oxidation state is found in vapoluminescent complexes used to detect VOCs. A 1.2 molar solution of this element's sodium hexachloro derivative is the standard for a type of NMR using its 195 isotope. The Dewar-Chat-Duncanson model explains the structure of a complex containing this element, coordinated to 3 chlorides and an ethylene called Zeiss's salt. This element is central to... I have Justin.
Platinum.
That's for 15. Good buzz. Platinum 15 and Imperial get these bonuses. Several groups identified as these people, including their white subgroup, also include the heptaphilites, invaded the Indian subcontinent in the 5th century CE for 10 points each. Name these nomadic people who ravaged Europe during the late Roman Empire under their king Attila.
These are the Huns.
Huns. Yeah.
Yeah.
Direct.
These are the Huns. The Huns invaded northern India during the rule of this dynasty. The mathematician Aryabhata, who is credited with inventing zero, lived during this dynasty.
These are the Guptas. The Gupta dynasty. The Guptas.
They are the Guptas. And finally, influences from outside India may have helped develop this game during the Gupta Empire. This game, perhaps the common ancestor of European, Middle Eastern, and East Asian forms of chess, is first mentioned in the Bhavishya Purana.
This is Chaturanga, right?
Yeah.
Okay, Chaturanga.
That is Chaturanga for a very good all 3 of those. Toss-up 4. It's not on... yes, a reminder to have 2 hands on screen on bonuses, yeah. Toss-up 4. It's not on Gibraltar, but a jawbone discovered in this country's Cave of the Monkeys is evidence of early hominids using river travel. The Gibbon experience operates the tallest treehouse in the world in this country's Bukeo province. A gigantic snake pig eats divers searching for eternal life in this country's Nongfa Lake. The widest waterfall in the world creates a region.
Ross.
I have you know.
Philippines.
It is not the Philippines. Sorry, you lose 5 points. The widest waterfall in the world creates a region called the 4,000 Islands in this country's Champasak province. Residents of this country jokingly refer to themselves as children of sticky rice and call this country the land of a million elephants, based on its past as the Lanshang Kingdom. Half of this country's farmland is unusable after it became the most heavily bombed country in history during the CIA's secret war. For 10 points, name this landlocked Southeast Asian country whose capital is Vientiane. I have Agnesia.
Laos?
Laos is correct for 10 points.
Don't worry about anything else. Happens.
Your bonus is Cambridge. In a book titled Social Justice and These Places, David Harvey contrasts the liberal formulation and the socialist formulation of their function and problems. For 10 points each, name these places which people have the right to, according to Henri Lefebvre, order to combat spatial inequalities.
Like spatial, like living spaces. I really don't know.
Like homes, maybe just homes.
Yeah.
Homes directed.
These are cities.
Ah.
Oh.
Harvey applied ideas of this thinker, like commodification, historical materialism, and class struggle, to geography. Geographers who use this thinker's ideas discuss how the means of production control the distribution of the population.
Marx.
It's Mark. Yeah.
Yeah, got to be just Marx. Marx.
That is Karl Marx. A newer expression of the right to the city is this form of urbanism, typically led by cities that can include depaying and chair bombing. A similar form of gardening involves throwing seed bombs into empty plots of land.
What were they looking for?
Like this type of like urban planning, like
Like green
that's a-
urbanization, isn't it? But
this.
Try that.
Answer, please.
green.
No, sorry, this is guerrilla urbanism. Guerrilla is what I mean. For
So
just
that's
the middle
one
of
of
those.
those, right?
Just the middle of those. Toss-up 5. According to Antiochus of Syracuse, the first of these people were chosen from men who didn't fight in the Messenian War, while children were designated Parthenii. Brasidas recruited a unit of these people dubbed the New to the Demos. Pollux claimed these people surpassed Douloi and Orcatai in power. According to Thucydides, 2,000 of these people were executed in the wake of an earthquake at Cape Tenerus. I have Abigail.
Helots.
Helots is correct, 15 points.
Nice.
Your bonus is Cambridge. Many minimalist composers have used the piano in their works for 10 points each. This composer used a magic harmonic rainforest chord on a piano tuned in just intonation, rather than equal temperament, in his 6-hour piece, The Well-Tuned Piano.
6-hour piece
Like
would make a
pitch
6
type
hour.
thing, but I don't know.
Do we know
Sorry,
any
so-
kind of unusually long pieces that
I
we
mean,
can
I
guess?
mean,
It's
say
like
what? Like,
John
Answer,
Cage.
please.
Say that.
That right, what's Sarah saying?
Okay.
What was directed, sorry?
John Cage.
No, this is Lamont Young. At the premiere of this John Cage piece, David Tudor sat at the piano and played nothing, only opening and closing the piano lid to signify the start and end of each movement.
Walter TC.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah. Walter TC directed.
Yep.
Nice.
This composer instructed that a beautiful girl should endlessly repeat octave Cs while the orchestra cycled through 53 different cells in his In C.
Terry Riley. Yeah.
Yeah.
Third.
That is Terry Riley for the second two of those 20. Start at 6, or toss-up 6. This statement implies the positive semi-definiteness of the matrix of phenomenological coefficients in the Onsager relations. One method of deriving this statement applies Jensen's inequality to a statement named for Jarzynski. Rearranging one version of this statement leads to the delta G is less than 0 condition for spontaneity. This statement was expressed in terms of adiabatic inaccessibility by Cara Theodori. A formulation of this statement, which gives the integral of dq over t as not, I have Michael Mays.
In law of thermodynamics.
Can you repeat that? Sorry, you cut out at the beginning.
Second law of thermodynamics.
That's correct, 10 points. And Imperial get these bonuses. 2 blue columns and a large rock inscribed with hieroglyphics appear in the background as this figure caresses an androgynous figure in a painting by Fernand Knopf. For 10 points each, name this figure, who appears above a pile of human remains as a nude man leans into a cave in a painting by Jean-Auguste Dominique Ong.
Is it just death?
I don't know this Ong painting, so
I'm going to say death.
That's a bit.
sure.
Death directed.
This is the Sphinx.
Ah.
In a painting influenced by Ong, this artist depicted a winged sphinx clinging to the chest of Oedipus in a chasm. Salome approaches John the Baptist's floating head in this symbolist painting, The Apparition.
Is
Gustave
this?
Moreau.
Oh yeah, it's Moreau. Yeah,
Yeah.
Moreau directed.
That is Gustave Moreau. And lastly, Moreau obsessively copied a Gori Vittore Carpaccio painting of this figure and used him as the facial model for Oedipus. Christ in Triumph paintings evolved into depictions of this saint slaying a dragon on horseback.
St. George, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Direct St. George.
That is St. George for 20. Those are the last two. Toss-up 7. The defenders in this campaign ignored accurate details provided by the Lucy spy ring based in Switzerland regarding its key dates. Historians debate whether Operation Merita delayed the start of this campaign, which ended with a major counterattack on December the 5th with the defeat of Operation Typhoon. Army Group North's thrust in this campaign resulted in a 2-year siege in which the defenders built the Road of Life. That country also moved many factories beyond the Urals as a response to this campaign. I have Sam.
Right, German invasion of Russia.
Yeah, I think that's fine. Yeah, that's fine. For 10. German invasion of Soviet Union. I can take invasion of Russia as well. Your bonus is Cam. While pressing his face against the glass to penetrate the mystery of these animals, the narrator realizes, like a man buried alive, that he is suddenly looking at the face of the man he once was, for 10 points each. Name these expressionless, golden-eyed animals which the narrator becomes in a Julio Cortázar story.
What do you look at through glass?
Sorry.
Like look at like something like at a zoo, like
Have you got any
That
ideas?
sounds
like
weird.
tiger maybe. I don't.
Try
like,
tiger.
Try
Yeah,
tigers,
I-
yeah, sure.
No,
Tiger?
these are axolotls.
Oh, I won't
What-
get that.
Cortázar's narrator turns into an axolotl during one of his obsessive visits to this complex. Vladimir Nabokov claimed to have written Lolita after seeing an ape draw its own bars in this specific complex.
It's a zoo somewhere, but
Yeah.
which
In what country?
What? No, what zoo would like Nabokov go to?
And
maybe
specific-
Probably
Paris.
like in Vienna or if it's Paris, maybe?
Paris.
Paris Zoo.
No, sorry, I need specifically the Jardin des Plantes de Paris, that
wow.
is in Paris.
Oh.
The narrator of Cortázar's letter to a young lady in Paris is unable to stop vomiting these animals, which are also the protagonists of Watership Down.
Rabbit.
That
Yeah.
that
Yeah, rabbit.
These are rabbits for just the last of those. Start at 8. In a play by this author, a man's wife threatens to fire a maid as she puts pillows in his armchair, upon which the maid hits him in the head with another pillow. That maid, created by this author, repeats ignoramus as her master lists foods he was asked to eat, while she goes in and out of disguise between entrances. In an adaptation of Aulularia by this author, a valet helps negotiate an unfair loan that is secretly from his master's father to help Marianne. That valet later digs up and steals the father's beloved cash box. In a play by this author, the maid Toinette has her master play dead, revealing that his wife Beline does not love him. Earlier, she dresses up as a doctor to fool this author's supposedly sickly protagonist.
That's-
I have Justin.
Moliere.
It is Moliere for 10 points.
Ah,
And your bonus is Imperial. In one book, this thinker criticizes a form of logic he calls psychologism after the term was used in a review of his philosophy of arithmetic by Gottlob Frege for 10 points each. Name this thinker who pioneered phenomenology with books like Logical Investigations and Cartesian Meditations.
Husserl, right?
Yes, Husserl.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Direct Husserl.
That is Edmund Husserl. Husserl identified this English thinker's a system of logic as an example of psychologism. This thinker is
No.
better known for On Liberty and the
Yeah.
Subjection of Women.
Yeah, Mill directed.
That is J.S. Mill. And lastly, Husserl argued for this process of suspending judgment about the existence of the natural world as noumena while analyzing one's experience with objects and phenomena.
Bracketing,
Poche,
right? It's bracketing, isn't it?
Go for that.
Rings a bell,
Go for
yeah.
that.
Direct bracketing.
Yep, or epoche for all three of those.
Okay.
Okay, toss-up 9. 2 decorative strips called Frightened Swallows appear on one type of these artworks called Painted Hearts. A heaven frontispiece opens narrative examples of these artworks like Admonitions of the Court Instructress and one depicting the night revels of a royal minister. In one of these artworks, people warn a ship to lower its masts to avoid crashing into the Rainbow Bridge. The Otoko-e style responded to the royal standards of Ona-e scenes on these artworks as part of imakimono painting. Though not the title materials, these artworks are suspended from a ceiling and emblazoned with 4,000 made-up characters in Xu Bing's exhibition Book from the Sky. Zhang Xuedan's masterpiece along the river during the Qingming festival is, I have Michael Mays.
Like scrolls, Chinese scrolls.
Yep, scrolls is all I need for templates. Your bonus is Imperial. You are trying to extract natural gas by fracking, so you begin by looking for a site to pump pressurized fluid into the ground for 10 points each. You choose a site at one of these features, which are sheets of rock that form in fractures and cut through multiple layers of pre-existing rock. These features, which can be magmatic or plastic, are often contrasted with sills.
Any ideas?
Rifts, maybe?
B?
I'm gonna go for that.
That's a
Rifts directed.
Yeah, sure.
These are dikes. You include resin-coated sand in your fracking fluid as one of these materials, which help to keep induced fractures open. Ceramic types of these materials are strong because their particles are uniform in shape.
Are these catalysts?
No, maybe?
I'm
Answer,
gonna
please.
go for that. Catalysts.
No, I have fracking propellants.
Christ.
And lastly, however, anti-fracking groups are protesting against your plan because fracking can induce these natural disasters whose strength is measured on the Richter scale.
Earthquakes.
Earthquakes.
These are earthquakes for just the last of those. Start at 10. To bring peace between Pisa and Elis, 16 women performed this action at Hera's temple in Olympia, thus creating the Heraean Games. In the Iliad, Helen is first seen performing this action. While being chased, I have Abigail.
Weaving.
Weaving is correct for 15 points.
That
Very
seems
good.
quite
Buzz.
early.
That was early for that.
Your bonus is Cam. Answer some questions about the tribal hiddage, a document which may contain estimates of tribute amounts for 35 Anglo-Saxon tribes for 10 points each. The tribal hiddage lists 100,000 hides, a unit of measuring land, to this kingdom of the Heptarchy. This kingdom resisted Viking conquest under Alfred the Great.
Wessex.
Right?
Yeah, Wessex.
Wessex started.
Yep. The tribal hiddage begins with this kingdom listed with 30,000 hides. This kingdom was ruled by Offa, who may have established a hegemony over all of southern England during his reign.
Mercia. Yeah, Mercia, I guess. Like there, I'd imagine. Mercia.
Yeah, go for it.
That is Mercia. And lastly, the tribal hiddage notably does not include any land north of this body of water. Bernicia and Deira combine to form a state named for this body of water.
The Humber, like because Northumbria is north of Humber.
Yeah.
Like,
Oh, right,
the
yeah,
Humber.
Yeah.
The Humber.
That is the Humber.
Very nice.
Very well
For
done.
all three of those.
Score check?
So score check at half.
So with that power and full set of bonuses, it leaves the scores with 5 points in it. Imperial Ale 145, Cambridge Ale 140, with of course half a packet to go.
Yeah, that.
Okay. Good luck to both teams for second half. And here is toss-up 11. One piece from this country opens with cellos and basses playing the ascending dotted half notes C sharp, F sharp, before playing the descending half notes B, A, E as pianissimo tremolo strings enter. One composer from this, I have Sarah.
Hungary.
Good buzz for 15.
Nice.
Cam, your bonuses are here. During droughts, Incan farmers would tie up and starve dogs with this characteristic so their moans would draw the attention of the rain god Ilapa for 10 points each. Name this characteristic of cats Europeans threw into mass bonfires because of their association with bad luck and witches.
Like black ones, probably.
Yeah.
Black.
Black directed.
Yep, they're black. Thunder was created when Ilapa's sling hit a water jug held by this goddess to create rain. This sister wife of Inti was the Incan moon goddess and was venerated with silver to resemble her tears.
Do we know who the Incan moon goddess is?
No. Like I said, but
Answer, please.
Do we have anything? No.
no.
Okay.
Okay, that's time. This is a Mama Kila. Ilapa's shadow rested in this location that the Inca interpreted as a river and the source of the jug's water. In Navajo myth, Coyote grew impatient with the holy people and threw a bag into the air, thus creating this location.
Do we want like a real
They
place?
are like this, like is it the Milky Way maybe? Like if it's in the
Could be. Sure.
Go for it.
the Milky Way?
That is the Milky Way.
Wow, nice.
For the first and last of those. One of these proteins forms square array junctions between lens fibers. The E. coli protein GIPF is a homologue of these proteins, whose loop B and loop E form an hourglass-shaped cavity. The fourth isoform of this protein is found in astrocyte foot processes and is targeted by autoantibodies in a demyelinating disease that affects the optic nerve and spinal cord. Peter Ager discovered these proteins. What I have,
Aquaporins.
aquaporins is correct for 15 points. Your bonus is Imperial. During a scene set in this city, the narrator remarks that if we truly felt empathy, we should die of that war which lies on the other side of silence. For 10 points each. Name this city where a scholar on his honeymoon ignores his miserable bride to instead do research for the key to all mythologies.
This is Middlemarch,
right?
so it's in Rome.
Okay, Rome, yeah. Okay.
I think.
Okay.
Correct, Rome.
That is Rome. Dorothea honeymoons with the frigid Casaubon in Middlemarch, a novel by this author of Silas Marner.
Mary Ann Evans or George Eliot directed.
Either is fine. This 2021 novel is the first in a planned trilogy called The Key to All Mythologies. In this novel, the Hildebrandt family disintegrates after Russ loses control of his church youth group.
Not a clue.
I've never heard of this.
Yeah.
Answer, please.
We don't know.
Okay, that is Crossroads by Jonathan Franzen. Just for the first two of those.
I don't know what this called. A Key to Mythology.
Toss-up 13. A book that applies Harry Frankfurt's ideas to this activity, which uses hundreds of online responses to a YouGov poll to expand on a 2013 essay, includes sections on flunkies and goons. Extensive ethnographic interviews in inner-city neighborhoods informed a book titled When This Activity Disappears by William Julius Wilson. Barbara Ehrenreich describes the physical challenges of this activity and argues against barriers to accessing it in Nickel and Dimed. I have,
work.
Yep, work is correct. Or labor for 10. Imperial, your bonuses. In December 2022, Florida pulled $2 billion in assets from BlackRock for pursuing this investment strategy, such as investing in Netflix after it adopted diversity, equity, and inclusion programs. For 10 points each, name this investment strategy that limits money going to funds with high externalities, such as fossil fuels, tobacco, or product safety issues.
I like this practice. It's like internalizing externalities or something like that.
I think it's something more financy than economic.
Answer,
but
please.
Internalizing externalities.
No, sorry, this is ESG investing, or environmental, social, and corporate governance investing.
Okay.
Failed promises to install solar panels in the Amazon rainforest with ESG investing helped inflate funds for this cryptocurrency exchange managed by Sam Bankman-Fried.
That's
Ethereum.
No, it's the exchange.
Freeze.
It's the exchange, not the currency.
Answer, please.
FTX?
Yeah.
FTX started.
That is FTX. And lastly, in January 2023, this state's governor, Greg Gianforte, announced its investment managers would not be allowed to pursue ESG rankings. This state's only Democrat in state leadership is Senator John Tester.
Christ. Just choose a state that's mainly Republican.
Louisiana?
Answer, please.
Louisiana.
This is Montana, for just the middle of it. Toss-up 14. A Howard Gilman book about this case is partly titled for the police powers cited in its majority decision. This case's decision was informed by the earlier discussion of marine insurance in Algier v. Louisiana by Rufus Peckham, who cited usury laws in the majority decision for this case. This case's decision lost influence with the switch in time that saved 9, which ruled the government could restrict the liberty of Agnesia.
Lochner v. New York?
That is correct, for 15 points.
Nice.
Lochner v. New York for 15, and get these bonuses. When these bonds are on the same plane, they can form an extended conjugated system for 10 points each. Name these bonds that contain 2 overlapping p orbitals. A double bond consists of 1 sigma bond and one of these bonds.
So pi bonds.
Yeah.
The right side.
Yep, these are pi bonds. This form of spectroscopy is used to study conjugated pi systems. The Woodward-Pfizer rules are used to predict the absorption maximum in this technique.
This an MR? I don't know.
I don't think so. Like you want like something that measures like I don't know. Sorry.
That's time. That is a ultraviolet visible spectroscopy or UV vis.
Sure.
The peak wavelength in UV vis spec can increase or decrease depending on the environment, resulting in 2 different shifts. Name either.
Name either like
Answer, please.
I don't know. Chemical shift directed. It's not.
Bathochromic or hypsochromic. I can take bathochromic or hypsochromic. but reject hyperchromy, which is different. Toss-up 15. In a poem by this author, the speaker buys images of figures like Jehovah, Odin, and Mexitli, taking them all for what they are worth and not a cent more. This author described their daily workout of wrestling trees and shouting declamatory pieces in the experimental memoir Specimen Days. This poet answers a child's question by replying, I guess it must be the flag of my disposition.
Nice.
I have Michael Mays.
Whitman.
For 15. That is Walt Whitman. And your bonuses. This country's military renewed campaigns of violence and torture of independence fighters serving in Fallentil during Operation Clean Sweep for 10 points each. Name this country whose control over one modern-day country was opposed by the left-wing Fretilin during a decades-long conflict.
Any ideas?
Could it be Pakistan?
For telling, though.
Indonesia, maybe?
Yes,
Because Indonesia.
Try.
Indonesia.
That is Indonesia.
Well done.
Indonesia's invasion of East Timor occurred when the latter declared independence from this country after the Carnation Revolution. This country had also colonized Macau and Goa.
Portugal.
That is Portugal. Indonesia's military occupation of East Timor ended during this decade, which also saw the end of Suharto's government and the transfer of Macau from Portugal to China.
This is the 1990s?
Yeah, it was the same same decade as Hong Kong, right? So
Yeah.
the 90s. The 90s directed.
That is the 1990s for all three of those. Scores at 3/4.
So going into toss-up 15, it was actually 200 all, which means now it's 245 to Imperial A and 200 to Cambridge A.
Very close, as we expected. Okay, last 5 toss-ups. Good luck to both teams. Here's toss-up 16. For one of these objects X, Nakayama's lemma describes operations involving the Jacobson radical of X and a finitely generated module over X. A broader class of objects that contains these objects shares its name with these objects, but without vowels. A module is a generalization of a... I have Abigail.
Rings.
Yep, they are rings for 15. Your bonus is Cam. During the Tulasi Vivaba festival, a wedding is held between a plant avatar of this goddess and a Shaligrama stone to mark the end of the monsoon season. For 10 points each, name this Hindu goddess of prosperity, the consort of Vishnu.
Prosperity would be Lakshmi, right?
Yes.
I'm not sure.
Lakshmi direct.
That is Lakshmi. During her namesake puja, which occurs on the 3rd day of Diwali, Hindus welcome Lakshmi's prosperity by cleaning and making rangoli art in these locations. Priests are consulted for timing a puja held in these locations during the Griha Pravesh ceremony.
I'm not sure.
Like where you put rangoli, like, I mean,
Like
what do you say?
on their doorstep?
Yeah, on the doorstep, I guess. Yeah.
No, I have homes. I have just houses.
Oh.
I think we can protest that.
That's
Like-
fine.
Like
We'll look at it.
I mean,
we'll look at
if
it,
it
yeah.
matters, I guess.
Lakshmi is said to descend to Earth during the month of Ashvin on one of these days, which mark the full moon on the Hindu calendar. Raksha Bandhan and Holi occur annually on these days in the months of Shravana and Falgun, respectively.
Like the one, like what's the day?
Is there a specific like type of a part of the candle or something?
Is it like the first day of the month?
Thinking the first day of
Go for it.
Answer.
Go for it.
First day of the month, I guess. Or do you have a
No,
specific-
I have specifically Purnima, toss-up 17. In a short story by this author, a chef begins sexually desiring obese women before encountering a genie at a fast food restaurant. The protagonist of a novel by this author witnesses the Native American Tobias's leg snap underneath a horse. A character created by this author leaves a ballroom of mirrors undamaged and encounters a character carrying a copy of Don Quixote in the desert. An illiterate character created by this author justifies his control using fake papers from the King of Spain and his general Thomas Arroyo. A novel I have,
Carlos Fuentes.
That is Carlos Fuentes for 10 points, one widow. Your bonus is Imperial. This word comes after black in the English title of a movie about a ranch hand who joins a cult which rallies against greedy landlords after being swindled by his boss for 10 points each. Name this word, the last in the English title of a Fernando Meirelles movie about an aspiring photographer in a Brazilian favela who goes by the name Rocket.
Oh, it is God, right? City of God, right?
But it's black. It follows black. Or maybe
Yeah.
maybe the second one is God. Okay, so
Answer,
so
please.
God.
God.
Directed.
That is God.
Well done,
Black
Justin.
Black God, White Devil was heavily influenced by this American film genre, often criticized for its derogatory depiction of Native Americans in movies like Stagecoach and The Searchers.
Westerns, presumably, right?
Yeah.
The Western directed.
Yep. Musician Seu Jorge, one of the actors in City of God, also recorded music and acted for this director's movie, The Life Aquatic. A film by this visually eccentric director features an author of Western stories in the title Quirky Family.
It's Grand Budapest Hotel guy, Wes Anderson.
So Wes Anderson.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Direct Anderson.
That is Wes Anderson for all three of those. Toss-up 18. In Ecce Homo, Nietzsche compared his books to this school of thought, as they are both the highest thing that can be attained on earth. A leader of this school of thought argued for his right to the property of others with a syllogism stating, all things belong to the gods. The wise are friends of the gods, and friends share everything, so therefore all things belong to the wise. A group of epistles purporting to be by Greek members of this school of thought circulated in the Roman Empire. A leader of this philosophical school legendarily told Alexander the Great to stand. I'll get
cynicism.
Yeah, fantastic. Your bonus is Cambridge. This man sold his stock in the Royal African Company after a letter from the enslaved Job Ben Solomon changed his views on slavery and convinced him to buy Solomon's freedom for 10 points each. Name this man who founded a colony intended to resettle the unemployed and unemployable of England, which initially outlawed slavery.
No, I don't.
Mike, is this James Oglethorpe? Like, is this Georgia? Like, could this be
that.
like James
Go for
Oglethorpe?
him, yeah, sure.
Yeah, James Oglethorpe.
That is James Oglethorpe. Oglethorpe
Nice.
founded this colony intended to serve as a buffer between the Carolinas and Spanish Florida. This was the last of the original 13 colonies to be founded.
This is Georgia. Georgia, direct.
That is Georgia. Upon arriving in Georgia, Oglethorpe quickly made friends with this Yamacraw chief, who gave the land for Savannah to Oglethorpe and helped the Georgia settlers negotiate a treaty with the Lower Creek.
I think I know this. Does anyone?
Answer, please.
Move some new.
No, let's say that. Direct.
This is Tomo Chichi for just the first two of those. Okay, 2 toss-ups to go. Here's toss-up 19.
We have a
During-
score check.
Oh, yeah, of course.
Yep, so it's currently 255 to Cambridge and 285 to Imperial.
Good luck with teams. Here's toss-up 19. During this century, a large system of ditches lined with willow trees was constructed to ethnically restrict migration. A government in this century moved thousands of southern coast dwellers inland in a non-European Great Clearance designed to stop smuggling and I have Justin.
17th century?
Good buzz, 15. 17th century or the 1600s, and Imperial get these bonuses. The oldest surviving morality play is a sacred music drama composed by Hildegard von Bingen in this language. For 10 points each, name this lingua franca used by educated Europeans and clergy in the Middle Ages.
Not German.
Latin, right?
Yes.
Latin directed.
That is Latin. This author's Liber Secundus contains hagiographical dramas modeled after the plays of Terence. This canoness also wrote 2 hexameter histories of the Ottonian dynasty. Sorry.
Hexameter histories of the Ottonian dynasty. What do you say?
I don't know.
I think it's Goswinter or something. No.
But just say that. We don't have anything else.
Goswinter directed?
That is Hrotsviva. Well done. Yeah, that's.
Oh no, I
the
didn't
answer.
say that.
He
said
wasn't close enough. Sorry.
Oh,
I
okay.
wasn't close
No,
enough.
that's fair enough.
Probably
I
thinking
don't-
of the right person.
It,
but
it doesn't give
it's
me a
not close
pronunciation
enough.
guide. Yeah, sorry about
Yeah.
that. Medieval troops usually performed vernacular plays atop these objects, none of which survive today. The word pageant derives from a type of these objects with a scaffold used as a temporary stage.
Carts?
That could make sense. Pagere, I don't know. I can't think of anything else.
Answer, please.
Carts directed?
Yeah, I can take that. Wagons, but carts for the first and last of those. And final toss-up. This game. To take photos of this location, a Westinghouse camera was hung upside down and tilted at an 11-degree angle after a door moved. Reso plates were attached to Hasselblad 500 EL cameras to take pictures of this location, which resulted in the faint crosses visible in many photos of this location. This location occupies the bottom third of a spontaneous photo taken on Christmas Eve, while its photographer read from Genesis. In a photo from this location, a vehicle's golden legs and the photographer himself are visible in the reflection of a gold-tinted visor. A horizontal crossbar kept an American flag from drooping. I have, Justin.
The moon.
That is correct for 10 points.
Oh, of course.
Earth, moon, lunar. I can take the sea tranquil, and many other things. Your bonus is Imperial. Rochester and Butler observed in 1946 the decay of a neutral one of these particles into 2 pions by observing a V-shaped decay pattern for 10 points each. Name these particles whose positive variety consists of an up quark and a strange anti-quark.
Is this like mesons
Tauons?
or kaons or tauons? What did you say?
Kaons? Yeah.
Kaons. Yeah, I don't really know, so I guess it's reasonable. Direct kaons.
These are kaons. Cronin and Fitch used the decay of the neutral kaon to show that this symmetry can be violated. The product of this symmetry and time reversal appears to always be conserved.
CP?
Is it
No,
CP
could
or is it
be
just
one
charge
of-
or just parity? Like,
I think
let's
it's
just say CP. CP symmetry.
The decay of K plus solved the tau theta puzzle, which was resolved by the fact that this fundamental force can violate CP symmetry. This force causes radioactive decay and is mediated by the W and Z bosons.
The nuclear weak force directed.
Yeah, that's right. For all of this. And final score.
That makes the final scores 255 to Cambridge A, but 360 to Imperial A.
Well
but I
played,
think
both
the
teams.
scores probably
Okay.
don't
Yeah, well done.
Good
reflect
game,
quite how
everyone.
close
You
the
played
game
very
is.
well.
Hey, everyone.
Yeah,
That was
well done.
Mhm.
that was a pleasure to read.